Hi everyone. No news today, so let's get straight into the options charts. Then we'll get straight into the charts. And tough trading today did not do well, but I do feel better about my positions going into tomorrow, and we'll talk about a little bit of my trading thesis for Monday. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day that the markets are open, as well as Sundays, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. So looking at options open interest for Monday, you can see max pain is at 411, significantly higher than we were today. Highest call strike 410, highest put strike 408. So people a little bit more bullish going into Monday, kind of interesting. Definitely way less options in the market. We were around 4 million options here on the SPY for the close here today. So much less in the market, but you can see still lots of 410 calls. I would guess that's probably going to be our upper limit, which is still about $2 of upside. And then those 408 puts you can see here. Maybe we swing up into this 411, 412 zone. But either way, the options are telling us that we should be a little bit bullish going into Monday. You can see the options in the market right now, quite a lot here at 405. Still quite a few calls at 406, which is interesting. Max pain is at 411, which is all the way up here, and I would expect the market to drift in that direction. Moving over to the NASDAQ just for a moment, you can see max pain up at 305, pretty crazy high there compared to where we are right now. Market's just closed right around 301. You can see a ton of puts in here at 290, much bigger than everything else. The spread is a lot less here, and I don't usually look at the Qs very often, but I do trade it, so it's worth looking at. So you see a lot of 300 puts in here, pretty interesting. A couple of 305 puts and calls. Probably not going to finish above 305, that would be my guess. Probably somewhere here at around 302 to 303 would be my expectation for Monday. Looking at the puts, you can see still quite a few puts in here. 290, like I said, 299, quite a few there as well. And then 300 calls all the way up to 302. I wouldn't expect to finish too much above here, but still a little bit more bullish than it was here today. And you can see max pain at 305, sitting right here, quite a bit higher than current prices. Moving over to the SPY, you can see we came into that support zone that we've been watching. That's the lower area of this kind of bull flag that we've been in. Touched that zone multiple times here, continued to find support until we finally broke out of these previous highs and made new highs, testing the 55 EMA here on the 15-minute chart. Did finish slightly above that going into the close. You can see we have a trend line up here at around 408 as well as 409. So I would expect to come into that zone and see the longer term trend is that black one. My longer term trends are usually black, shorter term are usually in blue here. You can see 408, 409 makes sense to come into that zone and test resistance. If we do get through there, then you're probably looking at the 200 SMA here on the SPY, which is trading at 409.23 right now. Should arc up a little bit here, maybe 409.50 by midday on Tuesday. Markets are closed on Monday, so keep that in mind. But right now looks slightly bullish, probably at least going to get the gap fill up to 408, 32 or so, and then 410. Momentum both bullish, especially bullish here on the hourly. RSI ticking up on both, not in overbought conditions quite yet, but I would expect to get there on the 15-minute chart, giving you some more upside for Monday. Moving over to the NASDAQ, similar thesis here. I would expect a gap fill at some point up to 303.30 before we had that bigger sell-off. Didn't even quite get to the aftermarket lows here today. 341, which was the pre-market lows, ended up being a pretty solid level of support. We came below that, tested a similar level here on this bull flag that we've been building, found support from there, and then did turn bullish basically the rest of the day. But it's worth noting that we did come back in, retest this 341 level, and then it looks pretty bullish here into the close. Again, momentum building to the upside, 4 hour also building to the upside, momentum on RSI ticking to the upside. Everything here does look a little bit bullish after we had this huge sell-off, a little bit of a basing formation, and then the continuation. Certainly possible that we stop right here, come back in, retest this tomorrow. If it does hold, then you would expect to get that bigger push up, take out the midpoint, and then maybe push even higher into this 306, 307 zone. But those are my two scenarios. Either we push up from here, come back into the 305, 306 zone, find resistance, and then sell off. But if we do double bottom and we push higher, then I would expect a higher price target, maybe even all the way up to 308. Remember, max pain for the Qs is at 305. So do keep that in mind. We're probably going to finish generally $1 or $2 within that zone. So if we get up to 308, probably overbought conditions. That would be a huge move for a single day, but it wouldn't be impossible if we did come in and double bottom and kind of get that slingshot into the afternoon. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. You can see Russell moved up quite a lot today, filled the gaps and moved even higher, almost testing the 144 EMA on the hourly chart. Very, very strong, lots of bullish momentum. And I would expect this to continue into tomorrow. Maybe we come back down, retest support here at 192.50 or so, and then move higher up to 194 maybe. That's what I would be looking for. Either way, I think we'll probably get to 194 on Tuesday. The Russell looks quite strong. Otherwise, looking at the Dow, you can see we took out that trend line with the gap down and then got back above it here today. We are at the 9 EMA on the 4-hour chart, so possibly an area of resistance, but you can see momentum stepping down quite strongly here on the 4-hour chart. And with steps this strong, usually you get the continuation. So we had big consistent steps coming in, and we're getting consistent steps coming out here now. And I would expect this to continue probably back up into this 341.70 zone or so on Tuesday. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, not much to say here with Apple. Came in the 55 EMA on the 4-hour, found support and moved higher. This is starting to roll over here, but it does look like we're still trapped in this consolidation area, pretty much between 156 and 151. Not much to add there. Momentum slightly ticking positive here at the end of day. Moving over to Tesla, similar thesis, stuck between 193.50 and 214. Did not take out that midpoint that we were looking at. Did actually make a slightly higher low here now. So maybe we get up above this 214 level and we start to make new highs. Obviously, if that happens, then we should be looking for much more. Probably looking up to 225 as your next resistance point. Either way, kind of trapped in a channel. Momentum kind of ticked to the upside. Not super strong. Definitely stronger here in Tesla than Apple, though. Moving over to AMD and NVIDIA. AMD continued to sell off. We took out that midpoint yesterday and we've continued lower. We haven't quite hit that price target of around 76.50, maybe even lower at 76.25. I do expect to get into the highs of this previous range here. We have this zone of support that I would expect to find buyers. Not quite there yet. We did hit oversold conditions on the 4-hour chart. And we did get a step down here after hours. Maybe we get a retest back up to this 81 level and then get the continuation down. Certainly possible. Otherwise, looking at NVIDIA, we tested that midpoint, which is also the highs from this previous consolidation zone. Did find a little bit of support and bounced here into the end of day. Similar thesis to Apple and Tesla. It looks like we're in a range here now, waiting to see whether 230 breaks to the upside or if 210 breaks to the downside. Moving over to consumer staples and discretionary. Staples, once again, outperforming, but still stuck within this range. Interesting to see how strong Staples was compared to the rest of the markets. Does look pretty strong. Got that big green candle here through the 50 on RSI. Still kind of stuck in this zone at the 73, 75 level. You can see this was the area of consolidation here previously where we tried to get through it and got rejected fairly quickly. Similarly here, got up, got rejected. So once again, testing that zone. Does look strong here today, which is interesting. Did make a slightly higher low here compared to the previous one. But also we had this lower high compared to the previous high. So we're kind of stuck in this channel. But it does look marginally bullish. Moving over to discretionary. Got bearish momentum on the 4-hour despite the slightly bullish day. We did fill the gap, which was interesting. So we did find support at this previous midline that we were watching. And we did move higher. We're now retesting resistance. So we have to watch on Tuesday whether that breaks down. Does seem like we might go higher from here. Either that or this is going to become kind of a channel like we've been watching on the other charts. So we have a level here probably at 147.25. That's what I would be watching. Just basically the bottom of these wicks. You could probably put it at 148.50 as well. So somewhere in that zone. 147.25 to 148.50. Now we're looking at this previous high at 154. If we do break out and start to make new highs, maybe we're changing the shape of the channel. But right now, like I said, we're testing resistance. If this does continue to break down and consumer staples starts to hold up a little bit better, maybe this is starting to turn into a true downtrend. And we just got a little overextended today into Tuesday, in my opinion. And then we'll start the more substantial breakdown probably Tuesday afternoon into Wednesday if it's going to happen. Moving over to transports here on the 4-hour and the daily chart. You can see the 4-hour actually built a little bit of bullish momentum. This is one of the charts that's kind of mixed here. So on the 4-hour, we're at support and we're finding strength. In the daily chart here, we did gap through that level, found a little bit of resistance. So kind of have to pick which trend line do you like. Usually you want to defer to the higher time frames here, but this 4-hour does look a little bit strong and we did get bullish momentum at the end of day. I would expect this to perk up at least a little bit. We did get above these previous lows here as well on transports. I don't think this is going to be a full reversal of trend, especially with how much bearish momentum we have here and how little we've actually moved. But perhaps we get a nice little push back up to the 9 EMA on the daily chart, up around 237.64. We didn't even test the real bodies of this candle here at 232, kind of like I expected to here today. I expected more bearishness, to be honest, but transport's holding up fairly well, finding a little bit of support. Does seem like we need to get up into this zone, maybe 237, maybe overthrow this trend line and then get the bigger push down. Still watching this as a wedge where we got an overthrow here and it looks like we're slightly breaking down on the overall thesis. But in the short term, probably half the day Tuesday, maybe all day Tuesday, I would expect a little bit of bullish momentum. Moving over to semis, not a ton to add here. Similar to NVIDIA, we tested that level and then got right back above it. You can see what that looked like. Big first candle here on the 4-hour, getting all the way to that level, throwing a wick through it on the next candle, and then finding support. This actually looks a little bit more bearish than some of the other charts here. Looking at the daily chart, you see bearish momentum picking up, RSI going straight down here today. But that wick is noticeable here, and you should expect at least a little bit of upside potential, maybe fill the gap up to 246 or so, get into that zone, into gap resistance, and then we get the move down. That's what I would expect after the big 3 days of downward movement that we had here on semis. And that would make sense on the 4-hour chart as well. So we had this big bearish move. Next day, we get a little bit of bullish consolidation, and then we get a sell-off into the end of the week. Moving over to yields just for a moment, the 2-year and the 10-year on the 4-hour charts, you can see we got a little overextended. We started to make some more lows here today. We sold off pretty much throughout the session, finished right at our lows here on both charts. Obviously, this is still a bullish trend on both charts. This could certainly be a shorter term pullback, but the amount of momentum that it does have here does look quite strong. You can see stepping down into bearish territory on both charts after a pretty considerable up move. Would not surprise me here if we came all the way down to test support down at 375 here on the 10-year. I don't think we'll get all the way down to 4.5 on the 2-year. Maybe we get down to 458 back at these previous lows, maybe find some support in there, maybe at the previous highs at 455. Somewhere in this zone we find a little bit of support, but it does look like yields are rolling over here a little bit into Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday. Moving over here to the dollar on the 1-hour and the daily chart. This looks pretty bearish here now. So we had this wedge, overthrew that, found strong resistance, and then pushed all the way through the wedge and broke out to the downside here. Certainly at a level where you find some support down at 103.80 or so. That's at this previous lows. Maybe we find a little bit of support, but overall, this looks pretty weak going into Tuesday. Looking at the daily chart, you golf the entire previous day's candle with a wick to the upside, looks very bearish. You would expect another bearish day here based on the daily chart, similar to what we had here, where we broke out through a big wick and then consolidated, and then we had a big candle right after that. That's generally what you expect after a candle like this. Doesn't mean we can't throw a wick to the upside and then get rejected here, but overall the dollar looks quite weak going into Tuesday. Moving over to J&K on the 4-hour and the daily. Similar thesis, gap down, found support, moved higher, 91, continues to hold. Overthrew it by quite a lot, but it did hold here. We're at this longer term trend line. We're back testing resistance here now. If we're going to move higher, you want this to push up to about $92. That would be quite nice. I don't know if we're going to get a push that strong here. It's certainly possible. The end of day candle was quite strong. We finished almost at the top of the candle, not quite. We have gap resistance up here at 91.65, worth watching as well. So maybe we get up there, fill the gap, overthrow that a little bit, test the high of the previous day, test the high of Wednesday up around 91.88, and then we get rejected. Either way here, a little bit of bullish momentum here on J&K, even on the daily chart and even here on the 4-hour chart, they look a little bit bullish going into Tuesday. Moving over to TLT, you can see we gapped through that level here on the daily chart. gapped down a little bit further, and then rallied through the session. Pretty strong, actually. Couldn't get above the 102.50 level. That's been the longer term trend line that we've been watching for a long time. Didn't get all the way here to fill the gaps, all the way down at 170. Did touch some of the wicks here, though, at basically 101. So pretty close to filling the gaps. Not great, but pretty big bullish candle here. Does tend to look like a bit of a reversal candle, and I would expect to see more bullish price action coming into Tuesday. If we do get above this resistance line, then we come up to probably 103.50, 103.70, somewhere in this zone. Fill this gap here previously, and then maybe overthrow that a little bit. Gap sitting at 103.10 or so, get that gap filled, and then move up to test the 9 EMA. Certainly possible. Something that I would be looking for. Momentum on the hourly looking extremely strong. You would expect that to continue. Probably not for very long. Maybe we get a gap up into that zone and then we sell off. But looking at RSI here, you can see through the 50 level continuing to stay strong. Momentum on the daily chart ticked down here today. RSI ticked up. If this continues here on Monday, maybe we get a couple of days of consolidation to the upside. That would be interesting. Overall, this is still a double topping pattern, but we have not taken out that midpoint yet. So we could get another shorter term bounce. Then we take out that midpoint, and then you're looking at 96.50 or so for your price target. So pretty interesting right now. Does look slightly bullish, but overall still bearish on the longer term charts. Moving over to the VIX, we came right in that zone that we talked about. I should have spotted this earlier, but once we were coming into this zone, I kind of figured we were done, and then we ended up falling pretty strongly as the market continued to rally into that zone. So we gapped right into it, found resistance, and throughout the session, momentum does look bearish. I would expect to get at least down to 1950 or so back into this previous zone. Also testing the 200 SMA here on the hourly chart. That would bring us back into the 55 EMA on the 4-hour. Momentum is ticking down on both charts. Bearish momentum on the hourly, stepping down here on the 4-hour. We are stuck at that 50 level here on RSI, so we're kind of at a midpoint. If it is going to roll over, you would want it to do it now. Certainly could get a slight bounce here into the early session, then get the rollover. Certainly possible, but definitely something to watch here on the VIX, and that does help with confluence on the other charts. Looking over at my accounts, you can see I've definitely lost money, so that's not great. But I feel like I got a better handle on what the markets were doing here today, and I feel like I can use that as I move forward. Definitely a lot of learning going on over the past month. But right now, I think I'm in good position, slightly bullish. You can see I continue to sell some puts in here, managed to make a little bit of money on my IRA. I did roll this put up. That's why you don't see a profit here right now. I originally sold a put lower as the market continued to rally. I decided to roll that up to the 192s here on the Russell. Slowly chipping away at that loss on my IRA, continuing to do fairly well there. Moving over to my individual account, I still continue to struggle a little bit in there. But after today, I did seem to get a much better feel for the markets, and I feel like I put myself in a much better position for Tuesday. You can see I have 2 covered calls here. It's down slightly in terms of prices, but I think the market's going to rally a little bit on Tuesday, especially after the lows that we felt over the last 2 days and how dramatic they were. Did get pretty overextended in the short term. Like I said, I don't think that means the down move is over, but I do think we'll get a shorter term bounce into Tuesday and then the continuation later in the week. But right now, I have 2 covered calls, 2 puts here, a little bit of profit on the calls because the market did move down. I actually sold some 299 puts earlier, which I made some money on. But right now, you can see minus $20 there. Either way, I think I'm going to be in a better position, and I'm actually going to use a little bit more options as I go forward here. I seem to do better with options than day trading here recently. I'm going to use that to my advantage, at least in the short term. Either way, slightly bullish going into Tuesday, but I'm going to be kind of quick on the trigger if we do start to sell off, as I do expect the down move to continue after a short retracement. Let me know in the comment section what you thought of the charts today, or what you thought of the markets overall. Did we find a little bit of a base or a short-term bounce? Or are we just going to crater again like we did on Thursday? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on Sunday's video. Sunday videos are always really important to see those longer-term charts and longer-term perspectives. Sometimes we get wrapped up into the shorter-term charts, and we're not keeping an eye on where we are in the bigger scheme, and that's why I think the Sunday videos are super important. Otherwise, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.